When Evelyn Carter opened her eyes that morning, something felt wrong, eerily wrong. The Boston winter light slanted through the curtains, pale and cold, glinting off the glass of her dressing table. She reached up, expecting the familiar brush of her thick silver hair against her fingers. Instead, her hand met raw skin, smooth, burning. Her breath hitched. A sour chemical smell, antiseptic, hung in the air like mockery. Her pulse roared in her ears as she turned toward the mirror. For a moment, she couldn't even recognize the woman staring back. The reflection wasn't Evelyn Carter, the elegant real estate mogul whose photo once graced the cover of Boston Builders Monthly. It was a stranger, a humiliated, stripped version of herself, her scalp red and glistening under the light. On the pillow lay a folded note, expensive ivory paper. The handwriting in neat blue ink looked almost delicate. She opened it with trembling fingers. "Congratulations, Evelyn. Finally, a haircut that matches your age." A crude heart was drawn at the end, next to the faint trace of perfume, Ava's perfume, her future daughter-in-law. The air seemed to vanish from the room. Evelyn didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she sat very still, the note fluttering slightly in her hand. Outside, snowflakes floated past the window, quiet and cruelly calm. "They wanted me to fall apart," she whispered to the empty room. "They wanted to see me broken." Her gaze shifted toward the mahogany safe at the corner. Inside it was an envelope she'd sealed just the night before, her wedding gift to her son Jason and his bride, Ava Sinclair. A $22 million transfer, the bridge she'd hoped would keep her son close, a final act of love after decades of sacrifice. She unlocked the safe, touched the envelope. The paper that once felt smooth now felt like a blade against her palm. For a long moment she stared at it, then pushed it back inside and spun the dial shut. "No," she murmured, "not a single dollar leaves this house." Her voice was calm, but something fierce had awoken inside her. She picked up the phone and dialed her longtime attorney, Daniel Brooks. He answered on the second ring. "Evelyn, ready to finalize the transfer?" She inhaled slowly, her tone even. "Put it on hold, everything. And tonight, after the reception, I want you here. We're rewriting the will." A pause. Then quietly, "Is something wrong?" Evelyn's lips curved faintly. "Just one thing, Daniel. I finally woke up." She hung up, then called her hairstylist, Nina Morales, the woman who had tended her hair for 20 years. Her throat tightened, but her voice didn't tremble. "Nina, I need you here. Bring the best wig you have. And please, don't ask questions." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Nina whispered. While waiting, Evelyn sat by the window, gazing out at her snow-covered garden. The frozen branches shimmered like glass. Her mind drifted backward, to the night she became a widow at 32, clutching 12-year-old Jason in her arms, promising he'd never know hunger or fear. To the years she spent juggling construction loans, hammering deals in glass towers, working until dawn under the sterile glow of office lights. Every skyscraper she built, every brick of her empire, was a piece of herself. And now, all of it, her life's work, was supposed to be inherited by a woman who had just shaved her head for sport. The doorbell rang. Nina arrived with a long black box. When she saw Evelyn's scalp, she gasped, hand over mouth. "Oh my God, Evelyn." "Don't," Evelyn cut her off gently. "Just help me stand tall today." It took an hour to fit the soft silver-gray wig. When Nina held up the mirror, Evelyn's reflection steadied, composed, fierce, formidable. The humiliated widow was gone. The steel woman had returned. After paying Nina and thanking her, Evelyn slipped a small voice recorder into her clutch. Her instincts told her today, words alone wouldn't be enough. As she stepped outside, the Boston wind slapped her face. She pulled up her collar, adjusted the wig, and walked toward the waiting car. The driver opened the door, but she stopped him with a small gesture. "Silence, please." The city rushed by in gray motion outside the window. Families, couples, laughter. She watched them blankly, then whispered to herself, almost a vow. Today, they'll learn what it means to underestimate a mother. The car turned toward St. Andrew's Church. The snow kept falling, quiet, relentless, cleansing. Inside her chest, beneath the new hair and layers of silk, something hot and steady began to burn. A storm. The church bells tolled, low and solemn, as Evelyn Carter stepped into the marble corridor of St. Andrew's. Candles flickered in tall gold stands, casting trembling halos on the old stone. Guests whispered nearby, their laughter muffled beneath the echoes of organ rehearsal. The scent of lilies hung thick in the air, sweet, expensive, and suffocating. She moved like a ghost between the pews, the soft click of her heels swallowed by the church's hush. Every step tightened the flame in her chest. She had survived humiliation that morning, but she hadn't come to cry behind pews. She came to listen, to see. Behind a column carved with angels, she paused. Voices carried from the far corridor, low at first, then clearer. The sound of her son, Jason. "Just wait until after the ceremony," he said sharply. "Don't show up now. We can't risk it." Evelyn froze. The name that followed struck her like an electric shock. "Tessa, please. Once I get that money from my mother, we'll finally be free." Her blood ran cold. So it was true. The young secretary she had often seen around Jason's office, the one with two sweet smiles and careful manners. He hadn't just betrayed his mother. He was betraying his bride before the vows were even spoken. She pressed her hand to the wall, steadying herself. The recorder inside her clutch blinked red. Click. The words were captured. Cold. Undeniable. When Jason's footsteps faded, she slipped out from behind the column, her heart pounding with a strange calm. Rage no longer screamed inside her. It sharpened into focus. She returned to her pew and sat like any dignified mother waiting for the wedding to begin. From a distance, she looked immaculate, poised, elegant, untouched. No one could guess the volcano burning beneath the navy silk of her dress. But the second betrayal was still waiting. A few minutes later, needing air, Evelyn wandered down another hallway. At the far end, the bridal suite door stood slightly ajar, light spilling through the crack. Laughter chimed inside, bright, careless, cruel. She took a step closer. Ava Sinclair's voice cut through the air, sharp as champagne bubbles. "Ladies, in just a few hours, half of his mother's fortune will be mine. $22 million. The bridesmaids gasped, delighted. "Half? Already?" Ava giggled. "Well, the law's on my side. And once I have the money, I'll file for divorce. Clean, quiet. I've already spoken to a lawyer." Evelyn's pulse roared again. She clutched the doorframe so tightly, her knuckles went white. One of the bridesmaids asked, "What about the mother-in-law? She seems like a handful." Ava's tone turned ice cold. "I'll convince Jason to put her in a high-end nursing home. Out of sight, out of mind. She can decorate the halls with her pride." Laughter exploded, sharp and cruel, bouncing off the marble walls. Evelyn trembled, not from weakness this time, but from restraint. Every instinct screamed to storm in, to rip off the veil and expose her for the viper she was. But Evelyn knew better. Big battles aren't won by rage. They're won by timing. The recorder blinked red again. Every word, every smirk was now evidence. She turned silently, her steps measured, her breath slow and deep. When she returned to the main hall, the organ began its prelude. Guests were taking their seats, faces glowing with excitement. To them, this was a fairy tale wedding. To Evelyn, it was a masquerade dripping in lies. She sat at the front row, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the aisle. The stained glass windows painted her face in shifting blues and golds. Inside, she whispered a promise to herself. Let them have their perfect ceremony. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall. The doors swung open. Ava appeared in her white French lace gown, radiant under the chandeliers. Jason waited at the altar, his smile polished and hollow. As the priest began the vows, Evelyn's eyes did not leave them. I promise to love and cherish you, Jason said. She remembered the phone call to Tessa. Once I get that money, we'll be free. Ava spoke next, her voice honeyed. I promise to stand by you, to keep this love forever. Evelyn almost laughed. Forever, she thought. Until the bank transfer clears. When the priest asked if anyone objected, her body tensed. For a moment she imagined standing up, shouting the truth before everyone. But she stayed still. Not yet. Her revenge would not be a burst of anger. It would be a revelation. A single, calculated strike. The ceremony ended in applause. Cameras flashed. Guests cheered. Ava and Jason kissed under the rose arch, the picture of happiness. Evelyn clapped too, slow and steady, her smile composed. No one saw the small recorder in her purse, still glowing, still armed. They had drawn the first blade this morning. Now she held the second one. And when she chose to use it, it would cut clean and deep. Crystal chandeliers glimmered above the grand ballroom, scattering gold light across rows of tables draped in white and crimson. Laughter, camera flashes, the soft chime of champagne glasses. All of it hummed around Evelyn Carter like a distant, meaningless noise. She sat at the head table, her posture perfect, her clutch resting on her lap like an unspoken weapon. Inside it, the little recorder glowed faintly red. Jason and Ava were radiant at the center of it all. The newlyweds beamed as guests toasted them, a perfect image framed by music and candlelight. Ava's diamond earrings caught the light like shards of ice. Jason's hand covered hers, all charm and performance. Evelyn watched them closely, her heart as still as stone. The master of ceremonies tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, may we have a few words from the mother of the groom? Applause rippled through the hall. Jason smiled, though a hint of tension shadowed his eyes. Evelyn rose slowly, lifting her glass. The room quieted. Her voice came soft, steady, full of grace. Thank you, everyone, for celebrating this beautiful day with our family. It means more to me than words can express. Polite smiles, murmurs of approval. For 33 years, she continued, I've lived by a promise I made the night my husband died, to protect my son, to give him every opportunity I never had. And I kept that promise. Every brick of my company, every hour of lost sleep, every drop of sweat was for Jason's future. A gentle wave of emotion passed through the crowd. Jason's smile widened, though his eyes darted to Ava. Evelyn let the moment hang. Then her tone shifted, cool, deliberate. Today, I wanted to give them a wedding gift worthy of that promise. $22 million. Gasps swept across the hall. Glasses clinked. Someone choked on champagne. Ava's eyes flashed greed before she could hide it. Jason forced a grin that didn't reach his eyes. But before I finalize that gift, Evelyn said, lowering her glass, there are a few things everyone should hear. She opened her clutch and set the recorder on the table. A tiny red light blinked. The room fell silent. Jason's voice filled the air. After I get that money from my mother, we won't have to hide anymore, Tessa. The sound was unmistakable, clear, intimate, devastating. Whispers exploded around the tables. Faces turned toward Jason. He paled, mouth opening and closing like a drowning man. Mom, this is... Evelyn raised a hand. A misunderstanding. Then perhaps you'll explain this too. She pressed another button. His voice again, colder this time. She always wants to please me. As soon as she signs this afternoon, we'll have it all. A fresh start. Freedom. The ballroom erupted. Shock, murmurs, camera phones raised like witnesses at a trial. Ava's painted smile cracked. She stared at Jason, fury and panic colliding in her eyes. Evelyn's tone remained calm, almost gentle. A joke, perhaps? Betrayal disguised as humor? Jason stumbled to his feet. "Mom, stop, please. You're making a scene." "I'm making truth," she said evenly. She reached into her clutch again and unfolded the ivory note, the one with the neat blue ink and the scent of Ava's perfume. "And since we're being honest, let's talk about this. Congratulations. You finally have a haircut that matches your age. Does that sound familiar, Ava?" Ava shot up, trembling. "That's not mine. You're lying." Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. "Am I? Because I also heard your little pre-ceremony chat with your bridesmaids about divorcing Jason after the money transfers, about the nursing home you've picked out for me." The room froze. Every guest stared. Ava's face drained of color. Her father buried his head in his hands. Evelyn lifted her glass again, her hand steady. "So no, there will be no $22 million gift tonight. The only gift I'm giving is the truth. And the truth is this: greed and betrayal never win." A gasp rippled through the room, followed by the harsh scrape of chairs. Jason slumped into his seat, pale as marble. Ava's mascara streaked down her cheeks as she muttered incoherently, denial collapsing into sobs. Evelyn set her glass down, turned, and walked toward the doors. Behind her, the room buzzed with shock, phones recording every second. Jason chased after her into the marble lobby. "Mom, please, don't do this. I was wrong. I was stupid." Evelyn stopped, turned slowly, her eyes glacial. "Don't turn betrayal into a mistake, Jason. A mistake is spilling wine. What you did was a choice." He dropped to his knees, but she stepped back. "Stand up. If you want forgiveness, earn it. I'm done paying for your lessons." And with that, she walked away, her heels echoing through the grand hall. Behind her, chaos unfolded. A wedding turned into a reckoning. In front of her, only silence and the cold Boston night. The next morning dawned gray and quiet over Boston. The chaos of the wedding night was gone, replaced by a silence so deep it rang in Evelyn Carter's ears. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of black coffee cooling beside her, the newspaper untouched. Her phone had buzzed all night. Jason, Ava, unknown numbers, relatives, but she hadn't answered a single one. Today was for action, not apology. At exactly 9, she drove through the crisp winter air to a red brick office downtown. Daniel Brooks, attorney at law. Her longtime lawyer greeted her with weary eyes and concern. "I heard what happened at the reception," he said softly. Evelyn nodded once. "Then you know why I'm here. We're rewriting everything." He gestured for her to sit. The desk was already cleared, a fresh stack of legal forms waiting. As she signed the first page, her hands were steady, her expression unflinching. "Remove Jason as an heir," she said. "Terminate his trust. Every pipeline. Not $1 goes to him or to Ava." Daniel blinked. "And where will the funds go then?" A small, quiet smile formed on her lips. "To women like me, widows, single mothers starting from nothing. We'll call it the Carter Freedom Fund. Let the money finally build something that deserves to last." Daniel nodded slowly, admiration replacing hesitation. "Evelyn, you realize this will make headlines." "I've lived in headlines," she replied, signing another document. "Now I'm ready to live in peace." The pen glided over the last page with a sound like closure. When she finished, she leaned back and exhaled, a deep, releasing breath that seemed to carry decades of weight away. Later that afternoon, she returned to her house. The rooms were still, sunlight stretching in golden ribbons across the hardwood floors. Family photos lined the walls. Jason's graduation, their first apartment, the ribbon cutting of her first building. For a long moment she stood before them, not with anger, but with understanding. She gathered the frames one by one, wrapped them carefully in tissue, and placed them in a box labeled Memories, Not Chains. Then she opened the safe once more, but this time not to guard her wealth, to free it. She reorganized every document, labeled the new file Freedom Fund, and locked it again. When the door clicked shut, the sound was light, almost musical. In the days that followed, Evelyn began rearranging her life in smaller, quieter ways. She signed up for a painting class at a small seaside studio north of the city. The place smelled of salt and oil paint, the walls alive with color. On her first day, she sat among women her age, their faces lined but bright with curiosity. "Don't worry about perfection," said the instructor, a kind woman named Marianne. "Just paint what feels true." Evelyn dipped her brush into blue and drew her first line. The bristles trembled, awkward at first, but soon the motion steadied. The ocean took shape, wide, open, unbroken. That's where she met Samuel Reed, a retired engineer with kind eyes and a crooked grin. "I'm terrible at this," he confessed, glancing at his canvas, "but I keep coming back." Evelyn smiled. Maybe that's what courage looks like, showing up again. They became friends, walking to the beach after class, talking about loss, about rebuilding. Samuel never asked about the wedding. He only listened when she finally shared it, weeks later. When she finished, he said simply, "You didn't lose a son. You just stopped losing yourself." His words stayed with her. Months passed. Her walls filled with canvases, sunsets, wild seas, cherry blossoms blooming late into spring. She began to see herself in every stroke, every patch of color. The woman who once built skyscrapers now built peace, one painting at a time. One evening, as she packed for the class exhibition, she found Jason's car parked at her gate. He stepped out, older somehow, his arrogance replaced by exhaustion. "Mom," he said quietly, "I lost everything. Ava's gone, the company, gone. I don't want your money. I just want your forgiveness." Evelyn studied him, her son, fragile, broken, human. "Forgiveness," she said softly, "is for my peace, not your convenience. If you truly want to change, stand on your own. That's how you'll find me again." Jason nodded, eyes wet. He left without another word. When the exhibition came, Evelyn hung her favorite piece at the center, Woman by the Sea. A silver-haired figure standing before the waves, strong and calm. A visitor admired it and asked if it was for sale. Evelyn smiled gently. "No, this one belongs to me." That night, as moonlight shimmered across the water outside her window, she poured herself a cup of jasmine tea. The ocean whispered softly beyond the glass. She looked at her reflection. No longer the wounded mother, but the woman reborn. "I didn't lose," she whispered. "I bloomed, just late."